Welcome to episode 154 of the Guitar Builders Basics video podcast. Luthier's tips, tricks and training from me, Ben Crow, at Crimson Guitars in the UK. Now, today's question is from... It's not from Derek. I don't have a name. I don't have a name for this question, and I'm very sorry. No, do you know what? He's confused the hell out of me. I think his name on YouTube is Name. Space Name. If that is your name, you're a meanie. Anyway, okay. This is all about inlay. He says, I love how leaves and flower-like inlays look, and I'd like to know what are the cheapest materials and techniques to do that. My first idea was using coloured glass powder and epoxy, but I don't think it will hold. I'm also not sure that I can make a good enough cavity using just the cut-to-cut method. Any suggestions? Well, name. I didn't put this into the show notes, so, but that's copied and pasted, so that is his name. What can you do? Okay, several questions. Materials, cheapness. Yes, crushed glass and epoxy, or wood dust and epoxy, or well, actually crushed glass is pretty awesome. Something like glow-in-the-dark powders mixed with epoxy work very, very well. Copper or brass or bronze powder sold by the kilogram from, one company I know for sure is Mold Life, for example. I have a half kilo of the stuff somewhere around here. Oh, here we go. Haha! Yeah, Mold Life bronze powder, 1 kilogram. Not particularly expensive. And when you mix it in with epoxy, you can fill any cavity you like. And it really works very, very well. As you say in your question that you're not sure if it would hold. Epoxy is built for that stuff. Use a slow setting glue. You don't want this 5-minute epoxy. That's just it doesn't give you enough open time. But mixing a powdered material and epoxy is a very, very valid way of creating inlays. I've seen some amazing things done with this sort of material. Get outside of the guitar buildings world. Go and check out videos from wood turners. They use this sort of stuff all the time, and it really is very valid. Super glue also works quite well with powder, although it tends to change the color depending on what you're working with. When we're filling a crack or something like that, and we want it to look like wood, we use a mixture of white glue and wood dust, because the super glue and wood dust makes it much darker and doesn't match quite as well. So, well, you can't get much cheaper than that, because you can make your own glass dust out of, your daughter's bead necklaces or something, for example. My daughter's going to watch this later and kill me. Hey, baby. But it works very, very well. I'm going to be doing a video at some point in the not too distant future talking about the top 10 silly mistakes of luthiers or beginning luthiers or something like that. I need to figure out what to call it. One of them is going to be cheaping out on materials. It is a whole different ball game doing inlay with powder and doing inlay with shell. And frankly, I spent more on this kilogram of bronze powder, and you can't really get it in smaller quantities, than I would have spent on a sheet of mother of pearl thick enough and big enough to do quite a large amount of inlays. It's not actually that expensive. Unless you're going to spend an hour crushing glass beads to get the color you want, or half a day crushing glass beads to get the color you want if you're doing several different colors. It's a false economy. One of the other mistakes I'm going to talk about is buying materials and hardware that's too expensive. So there's somewhere in the middle, but we'll get there. Now, abalone shell, you can get raw abalone shell on eBay for not very much money. You can get small-ish pieces of thick mother of pearl for really not very much money. Just be aware that some of these materials might not be as expensive as you think. The second part of your question is the cut-to-cut method. Essentially, this is where you cut down into a cavity and then cut and pull it, excavate the cavity, as it were, with a sharp mini chisel. We make fantastic chisels at Crimson Guitars specifically for inlay work. That is how inlay is done, and as long as you practice, you can use that method to get sublime results. And I'm going to do a close-up in a little while of this neck that I've been working on. It's not quite finished yet. I've got some engraving to do, but this is using abalone and reconstituted stone and mother of pearl and bits and pieces to do exactly what you're talking about, flower inlays. The alternative is to use a little Proxon or Dremel type tool in a little router base. And a tool like this, I use this all the time now to rough out the cavity, and I still use a cut-to-cut method with sharp tools. A sharp scalpel blade and a sharp chisel really gets the result that you're after. In the end, it's just about practice. It's all it is. It boils down to practicing and being confident. But yeah, basically powder and epoxy is a valid method. There is one way, if you're very, very worried about it, what they do when they're making inlaid metal, i.e. if you look at those elven swords forged in the fires of Mount Doom or something, if you've got a silver metal with gold inlaid into it in Celtic patterns or something like that, what they do is they'll cut the shape they want, and then instead of having straight sides at 90 degrees to the bottom of the cut, they angle them out and they actually chamfer it in, so the metal gets hammered in underneath the edges, and that holds it in. This is a method that you can use with powder if required. Anyway, I'm going to give you a close-up now of these inlays and see what you think. As you can see, I've got gold mother of pearl, reconstituted stone, abalone, reconstituted stone. There's mother of pearl. There's all sorts of different types of material in here, and it really, well, it looks pretty awesome. I've still got a lot of engraving to do. Now, if you look at the color change on this flower, well, if it will do what I want it to do, you can see, if you're looking at the petals, that it's different shells, and they react differently to the light. Whereas if you're using a powder or something like that, you wouldn't have that effect. My opinion always is really that while it's not as easy using a solid material like this, it's certainly more attractive. And you know, even these part-made inlays, you can see, well, it's going to be a very, very nice guitar in the end, if I do say so myself. So I would suggest try using solid shell if you possibly can. Reconstituted stone, etc. This is not an expensive material. Look at that red in there. And I would just say, well, I would just say thank you very much for watching. If this has been of any use to you, please click like, and subscribe and all that jazz, and come back for more in the morning. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.